Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson, best-selling author and accomplished public speaker specializing in education and educational leadership. I am your co-host, Jeremy Johnson, organizational psychology consultant specializing in career coaching, training, and development. Meet us here each week to discuss topics in education and leadership and meet with some of the top education talent and thought partners from across the globe. So grab your latte, sit back, and enjoy a relaxed conversation that will leave you informed and encouraged. Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. This morning we have Dr. Zach Bauermaster with us. How are you today, Zach?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Dr. Johnson and Jeremy. Really appreciate being here.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey so far?
Yeah, so I'm currently proud principal of Providence Elementary School. I love what I do. I'm just passionate about creating a school culture where kids want to come every day, a fun environment where kids want to come. But to do that, certainly creating a place where teachers want to be and operate at their best, and where families trust and want to send their kids. So I'm proud to do that. Prior to that, though, interesting. So as I said, I'm an elementary principal, but I started out as a secondary social studies teacher. I taught 8 years at the high school and middle school level. When I became an assistant principal, it was at the high school level. At the same time, I was going through my doctorate in superintendent letter of eligibility. So at the same time, I was passionate about seeing all levels. I know I'd been at the high school level and the middle school level. And then an assistant principal job opened up at the elementary level. So I did that for a year. And then the last 3 years, I've served as an elementary principal. And even before that, when I got into teaching, I just knew I wanted to be around kids and people because I'm passionate about people. So I thought I was going to be a lifelong social studies teacher and a high school basketball coach. So path has certainly gone a little bit of a different direction, but really where I want to be, surrounded by a lot of people, a lot of staff, a lot of students, and a lot of families.
Yeah, good. How do you think you handled your transition from high school to what you do now?
I tell people this all the time. And I think the biggest thing I learned, whether I was at the high school level, whether I was at the middle school, or whether I was at elementary, the work we do in education is all about people. And I think it's that concept of, so when I talk to some people about that transition to high school to elementary, they're like, oh, that'll be tough. You need this elementary. And other people will say, leadership is leadership. So I found leadership is leadership. And I sometimes, having a secondary background, I think that helps me lead at the elementary level, where you're really focused on, you're looking, you're listening, you're trusting the experts. So that's been really helpful for me in all my transitions, just keeping a focus on the people. Because at the end of the day, we're looking to grow people. I'm looking to grow staff to maximize their gifts and abilities, put them in a position to be successful so that they can do the same thing for students.
I think the ease you had with it is because you are people focused. Because I do hear sometimes when people say, well, especially in leadership, if they're at the elementary level, but they've never taught at the elementary level, they talk about it being such a culture shock. Because you really do have to have that empathy and be people focused that some people may struggle with it. And I think, I won't say a lot of leaders, but there are leaders that do struggle with that, because a lot of times we move up in the ranks based on what we do, what we accomplish, what we're able to attain. And sometimes that isn't about those key leadership points, like having compassion and empathy and those people skills that really do set good leaders apart. Because I really liked what you said about, you want a place where the students want to come, but to do that, you have to make a place where the teachers want to come. And that's just such a good nugget there that I hope that our anyone hearing takes away from that is, you're focused on bringing the best for your teachers, because they're going to, when you do that, they're going to bring their best for their students. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think what you mentioned there is so true as well. Those pieces of empathy and compassion, because as you know, in education, it's not like I can sit here and provide teachers big financial bonuses. I can't reward them that way, but I can love them as people, and I can build a trust with them, a mutual trust where as I'm walking through the hallways, when I stop by and I talk to them before school, or there's a break and I'm able to connect with them, that they know I truly care, and that they're at a spot where, hey, he trusts me. He wants me to be healthy. He cares about my well-being here at work. He cares about my well-being at home. He cares about my family. And hopefully that just encourages people to continue to show up and give their best. But it is really, and I say it with quotes, those little things that we do where we're slowing down, we're listening, we're being present with people, because people work is not easy. People work is not easy. We need that patience. We need that empathy, and we need that compassion. That's so true.
Yeah, one of the things I say is that in leadership, relationships are the best part, but they're also the hardest part. So
Yeah.
it's just like in a personal relationship with your professional. It takes work. You got to
Yeah.
listen. You got to connect with them. But when you build that trust capital you're talking about by greeting them, checking on them, listening to them, even learning about their personal life, then that gives you the flexibility and the ability to do what you need to do, and they trust you that you'll do the right things.
Yes, exactly.
What qualities do you see as making the biggest impact on being a great educational leader?
I think we're already touching on them. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah, we definitely are.
that's being people focused. And I have, in my most recent book, it's called Leading with People, and I have an acronym in it, and it's helpful for me, and hopefully it's helpful for other people. So the acronym's based on the word people. And so I think about those qualities of prioritizing people, and that's little things like calling people by name. How do we greet people? How are we greeting them at the door? We started something at Providence, and I'd done it at a previous school. It's called Fist Bump Friday. And I give fist bumps all the time, but we have a special day on Friday where we really celebrate the week. And I talk about it like this: like, if you take an open hand, you have these 5 separate fingers, and they're weak on their own. But if you close that fist and you bring it together, it's a sense of coming together, and it's stronger. So we really celebrate and create that culture at Providence where, hey, we're coming together, we're stronger together. So we have this fun Fist Bump Friday. The news came out this year, and that's something fun as well. I like to try to promote my students and promote my staff. And I shouldn't say promote the students and promote the staff, and all the wonderful things that they're doing, because I'm so proud of it. So we prioritize people. We really get to know them. And then the E is empathize. And that's
Yeah.
slowing down. That's looking, listening. I talk about yellow light leadership, and the concept of when we often get to a yellow light when we're driving, instead of doing what we're supposed to, slowing down and looking around, we speed through. And as leaders, how often do we do that? Hey, we need to speed through and get to what's next. But things are blurry in our peripheral vision when we're going fast. But when we slow down, things become more clear. And then we know, hey, I need to stop in and I need to check in with that teacher, that student struggling, or that support staff member. I need to have a conversation with them. So I really think about, and I try to share that yellow light leadership concept of, hey, when you hit that yellow light, pump the brakes and slow down, come to a complete stop, look around and see the needs around you. And then the O is observe the needs of others and respond with compassion. So I think a compassion is empathy in action. What are we actually doing then? It's one thing to feel it, like, oh, I feel so bad, but what can we do? And then the P, talk about being purposeful in relationships. There's a faith-based component, so praying for people. And then the L is loving people, and the E is encouraging people. So within that, just a framework that I try to take into every day when I think about, all right, why am I truly here? Yes, there's those managerial things that I need to do. And I think of that as like this summer when we're getting schedules ready, when we're getting classroom assignments set. Like, all of that is leadership, though. It's putting staff, it's thinking about staff, it's thinking about students, and it's trying to put them in the right spot, but continuing with that people lens. How are we seeing people? Are we seeing them as people, or are we seeing them as helping us achieve success? Are we seeing them as a 4th grade teacher, a phys ed teacher, or are we truly seeing people as people?
Oh,
Yeah,
I love
I
that.
really like that. Yeah, the way that you've kind of created a framework for that, it should be pretty easy to remember, and especially the slowing down, right? That's
Mhm.
super important for everybody.
Well,
In
that goes
organizational
against
psychology. What is it?
Oh, I was just going, yeah, go ahead. But I was just going to say, yeah, that's counterintuitive to our culture
It
Yeah.
to
is.
slow down. Like you said, it's to speed up. But go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, yeah. In organizational psychology, we refer to mindfulness a lot, and it's just slowing down and taking that time to organize your thoughts, because that can be very difficult, especially those that are higher in agreeableness that can have imposter syndrome and
Yeah.
try just extra hard with whatever they're doing. It can be a lot. So mindfulness is just very important for everyone.
Yeah, just really taking a step back. We almost, I think leaders, we almost come to love busyness, and I've heard the term before, hurry sickness. And when we get the feeling to slow down, we don't like that feeling. And I don't know
Mhm.
if you heard this. There was a study done where individuals were in a room by themselves for 15 minutes, and the only thing in them with the room was something that they could shock themselves. And I think in the 60% or so of the men chose to shock themselves. Like just that, like that we struggle with solitude, but that's also a
Mhm.
spot where we're able to reflect and we're able to grow individually ourselves, really check our heart. But then throughout the course of the day to day, being able to slow down because our to-do lists is always they're always pushing us. And I found those days I cross off my to-do list, I'm like, yeah, I did it. But then I go home, I'm not feeling as good about myself. But those days that I didn't check those things off my to-do list, and those days I almost as a leader, some days, just to be honest, some days you do feel like hiding, but those days you feel like hiding, but you get out in the hallway, sometimes you have a conversation. You're like, I am so glad I took that lap this afternoon when I didn't feel like it, because you're encouraged by being able to have some of those conversations that hopefully are encouraging others.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's like going to the gym. Sometimes you dread it and don't want to do it or talk yourself out of it, but once you're there and do it, you remember how good it is and the importance of it, and it changes the rest of your day. So I like that. Yeah, I mean sometimes, and I think that when I talk to school leaders and district leaders, some aren't as comfortable with that. So it's not that they are rude or don't want to interact. It's just not, part of their skills necessarily. And so, they struggle to do that. And one of the things I share with them, if that's something you struggle with, is that interaction, calling people by their first name, because sometimes I'll have teachers say, I wish that my principal even knew my name, which is, a sad environment to be in.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you struggle with that, let them know, share that with them. That's not a weakness, that's not a sign of being a weak leader, but that helps them understand where you're coming from, because teachers in general are very empathetic and affirmational. Jeremy
Yeah.
talked about high agreeableness, which most teachers are, so they're very understanding of those things as long as you articulate it to them and let them know.
Yeah, that's so true. And I share that, like, this is part of my story, but years ago, I went through a season where I really struggled with anxiety and depression. And part of what I learned through that, and I think although it was a really uncomfortable time that stretched me outside my comfort zone, I learned so much through it. And even now, years later, as I interact with people, I remember how I was feeling on the inside, but how everything looked okay on the outside. And that's where that
Mm,
empathy piece comes in. It's like,
yeah.
wow, if I was feeling like that, and I guarantee no one would have guessed that I was teaching, I was coaching. I had two beautiful daughters at the time. Now I have a third. I have a son, and married to my high school sweetheart. On the outside, it looked like everything was going. I was continuing my education, but inside, I was like, "Whoa!" And I didn't know what was happening, but I was experiencing anxiety, which led to depression, and I knew. So that's something that really drives me. Just knowing we may not know everyone's story, but understanding everyone has a story can really change the way we lead. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I am geared that way. As far as connecting with people, love having conversations, because I know, as you said, Dr. Johnson, not everyone is that way. And that's certainly more challenging. So I really agree with you about being open. People often celebrate and admire our strengths, but they connect with our weaker areas and
Yeah.
areas of growth. So as you're
Mhm.
saying, it's just so important to be able to share and communicate that.
Well said.
Yeah. Tell us about a teacher or two that had the greatest impact on your personal development.
Such a great question. And it's always neat to reflect on. And what I think is so neat about that, if a couple come to mind, and one is my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Balderston. And here's why I share her name. I think back to her class, but not just her class. She reached out to me recently, my fourth grade teacher, and shared how when I was in her class, she started like a portfolio for all her kids. And even after they were out of her class in middle school and high school and beyond, she still collected things about them as she saw them. And so she still collected things, whether she saw me in high school basketball or college basketball. But she sent me an email this year just saying she ran into someone who updated her on my life and my path. And her last line said, "God bless you, Dr. B. I'm proud of you." And
Uh,
that was so cool. That's a fourth grade teacher. So I don't know where I was, nine or 10 when I was in fourth grade, but who has watched me and followed me along the way and just reaches out and says, "I'm proud of you." How awesome is that? And I think that's what we love about education, those lasting relationships and those connections we have. Another teacher that I think about too, similar, and I bring up his name. His name's Mr. Phillips, and he was a middle school art teacher. I don't like art at all, and I was not good at art. And I think in middle school I pretty much got A's, but I got B's in art class. But Mr. Phillips did the same thing. He would write me handwritten notes when I was in high school. And when I was in college, he still wrote me handwritten notes, follow me, congratulating me on certain things. And he's still in the community, and I love running into him and having conversation. But what's so cool about that, it wasn't about the class or the content at all. It was about the relationship. And a third one that I think that I want to add is, and I say my high school basketball coach, he was also a social studies teacher, but Tim Glacken. And Mr. Glacken, what I love about it was how connected he was to me in extracurriculars, and how I wanted to do well for him in the classroom because I know how much he cared about me. He stretched me outside my comfort zone. He gave me a next play mentality that we learned in basketball in the classroom that I take with life. And I know, and you don't want to just throw around this word, like he was passionate about his players, and he told us he loved us. And so when I think about those three people in my life, relationships comes to mind.
and I like that about the coach. Oftentimes, as males in education, we're called on to coach. I coached several different sports for a few years when I started out too. But there is something about that connection you have with the students outside the classroom,
Mhm.
whether it's a sport or any other extracurricular activity, drama, band, or whatever, that you build that connection on a different level because it's something that you tend to be passionate about or really like too. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think, people don't understand that's almost like a double, blessing, I guess, when you have those because, like you said, you even wanted to do better for him in class because he was your
Mhm.
coach. And,
Mhm.
again, all that reflects on is the importance of relationship, regardless of the roles, whether it's principal, teacher, student, whatever. Everything just boils back down to that connection, caring for them, and truly wanting the best for them. Because
Mhm.
I always share, and I won't go through the whole thing again, but my seventh grade teacher, life science teacher, was very influential to me. But she still had high expectations of us, which I, really,
Mhm.
really liked and remember. And then I became a life science teacher. So,
Yeah.
it really is neat how the impact that we can have. Good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. I worked with a teacher in my previous district. She was a fifth grade teacher, and she always told her kids, "I'm going to raise the bar high, but I'm always going to love you higher. Like I'm going to
Mm,
keep raising that bar, but I'm going to keep loving you higher." And that's
I,
something.
I
So
love that.
that's Mrs. Holton, and that's something I always take with me. And I love coaching too. I love coaching in the community. So where I live, I'm actually now a principal in that community, and I coach. And it is really neat. It is really neat, but it's also, that self care is really important where I'm able to step away too and disconnect at times. But it's awesome being able to coach the kids, seeing out in the ball field and on the basketball court, and then seeing the next day and just having those conversations and connecting with them. But then you also connect with their families on a different level as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We talk a lot about how necessary self care is, especially for those in education and leadership roles. how do you take care of yourself? Like, what's your thing?
That's a really good question. It's always good to pause because here's the thing. I often talk about it myself, but I'm not the best at practicing it. And what we just talked about, that solitude and slowing down. And my family was just recently away for a couple weeks on vacation, just enjoying time. And I was really purposeful in slowing down. I disconnected all social media, didn't check email once. And I sort of just let my thoughts go a little bit more. All right, where's my heart right now? What am I thinking about? And that's just really good time for reflection. And I think we often get distracted. It's a distracted world, whether it's email, whether it's social media, and it really kills our creativity. I just read Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, and he talks about that, how we go from surface level thought to surface level thought, and what we're doing is killing some of our deep work. So I think for me, I love writing. I love the quietness of the morning and getting up early and journaling. And for me, my faith's really important. So reading scripture and prayer. And that's really just a place to refresh myself because it is people work. And if I'm not refreshed and overflowing, I find I often lead from a place of overcommitment. And I find this, I love people, but I know when I'm starting to feel impatient or frustrated with people, I know it's not them. I know it's me. And I know that's a time that I need to step back. I love doing things with my family as well. We love to travel and visit baseball stadiums. I love to coach. I love to work out, and that's so good for me because I'm working with my mind all the time. It's so important for me to take care of myself physically as well. So sometimes you have to go back to the basics of making sure you're sleeping and you're eating right and you have healthy relationships. I think we often overlook those things.
And I think that's true in education. Like you said, it's, and again, we talk about it a lot, Jeremy and I, it's high agreeableness. It's a personality trait. And people that are high agreeable tend to go into education because education is what's considered a highly agreeable profession.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the challenges of that is that we do struggle with setting boundaries, those limits you're talking about. You're always overbooking, overdoing, and learning to say the word no. Yeah. Is just not part of an educator's vocabulary often. And we feel guilty when we say it, but we really do have to take that time. I don't know if you've ever, Jim Rohn, he used to be a motivational leader. He passed away years ago. But he said one thing that I always liked and took to heart. He said, when we're in the office, we tend to be thinking about, we wished we were on vacation. But when we're on vacation, all we're doing is thinking about what's going on at the office. What do we need to be doing? And he's like, stop it. Be in the moment. When you're at work, work. And then when you're on vacation, be on vacation. Put it all away, focus on that time to recover. And I think that's so important for, we talk about teachers all the time with self-care, but man, our administrators need it too, because they're, the research is saying over 50% feel like they are literally depressed. And we know the high turnover rate and attrition rate of the leaders too. So, it's just a high stress job that, doesn't get a lot of accolades that it should either.
Yeah. But to your point there, I was thinking about, like, I had a superintendent that always would say, be where your feet are. And he would admit he struggled with that. Be where your feet are when you're at work, because more than ever, you see like family life coming into work, like work life, you have to handle a phone call or do something with home. And your mind's just all over the place. So doing your best to be where your feet are. And that certainly leads to stress and anxiety, that constant feeling of anxiety. I know in the morning we have a lot of IEP meetings. So we have a lot of meetings in the morning, but as I sit in those meetings, I'm thinking about, all right, that teacher's down. Do we have the coverage? Is this out? Like the mind is going so much. So setting up systems and how you operate the day to day is important. But you're exactly right. When you truly step away and create that culture for the school where you model it. Like I love email crickets in the evening. The teachers and staff, I don't want to see emails over the weekend. I don't want to see emails. You might be working, and that's okay. But when you send an email and I see an email, that makes people feel like, oh, I maybe I should be working, or it triggers that they're off, but then they get that email and they're like, oh, I need to just look into this, and it just pulls. So those email crickets. And I did game boards this year where we focused on prioritizing people, empathizing, observing. But part of what I had them do, like bingo boards that they could turn into me as well. But that was like, plan a fun activity with your family, do something you love. So we're truly prioritizing that and living it out.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So there's a video going around on social media. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm kind of drawing a blank on the specifics, but there was advice from a specific coach. He said something about, if you miss a recital or game for a family member, I will fire you. That
Yeah.
was kind of his stance on it.
Yeah. I think I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's what
interesting.
I think about that. I have a young family, and I just don't want to miss anything. I don't want them to look over on the sidelines and not see their dad there. And typically I coach too, but I just don't. But part of that does lead to some of my stress. I'll be honest, where I'm trying to make it work. Like, hey, I'm getting to this game. I do need to go to this board meeting, so I'm going to take my clothes and I'm going to change quick. I'll be honest. I live that life right now with a young family coaching, but I love it. But I'm glad I feel that tug. I feel that pull of knowing I need to take care of myself. I know I need to take care of my family. And I want to certainly take care of Providence Elementary School as well.
What is something that you would like to share that you've accomplished as a leader? Something that you think might inspire someone else in a leadership role, or just a nugget of wisdom that you've developed over the years, or something that you've utilized from somebody
Yeah,
else?
yeah. I think it like I got someone messaged me on Twitter or X last evening, and they said last year, he was a principal. Last year, his focus was on kids, and he realized, I need to take a step back and I need to really focus on the staff so that they can focus on the kids. So I'm encouraged that I feel, and I'll say the message I want to share, the message I want to live out is reaching people as far as taking care of people and taking care of staff. So then he's like, how do you tangibly do that? And so that's encouraging for me, for people to reach out and then be able to share with them, like how you can truly focus on staff and their well-being. And like I said, it's not like I have all this extra money where we're able to give bonuses, but it's really love, take care of the people. I'm proud of the way. I'm proud because I think families are proud to send their kids to Providence Elementary, where I'm the principal. I'm proud because I think teachers are proud and staff are proud to work there, and kids want to come. Like, just creating a fun environment where, like I said, we have the Fist Bump Friday. I use social media to post some fun videos to just open up and share the story of what's taking place in Providence. I try not to let that consume me, because I don't want to say like, hey, here's the social media life. Here's what's at Providence, and they're separate. But I want to show families that we're having fun. I like to do fun student interviews, or I do interviews with staff. Those are some things that I've done in the past. Dress up like Buddy the Elf before Christmas break, and just bring an environment. That Fist Bump Friday, as I share, just that environment. I'm proud of those things, and I'm proud of creating. And you're never fully there, but working towards creating that place where kids want to be. Because I know now more than ever, especially after the pandemic, families have options: private school and homeschool. And what's been really encouraging to me is I'm getting more phone calls now about kids who are homeschooled or private school, and they want to come visit the school. And it's not a private school, but they want to come visit. So then we do have to recruit a little bit. And I love that. I love giving families tours. I love introducing them to teachers. I love sharing the opportunities that we have at the school. And I remember I worked with the principal, Art Painter, and when he would give a family a tour, he just lit up. And I just remember seeing him light up as he shared about the school, as he shared about the teachers. And I could just really see that passion. And I knew that was something that I wanted to carry as I learned from him as an assistant principal. Just that, what is that feeling? On our doors, we also created, like, we're glad you're here. That's our motto. We're glad you're here. That's on our doors. But as we talk about with the staff and the front office, we don't want it to just be a slogan on the wall. I know Jimmy Casas talks about words on the wall. We don't want it to be just something that's on the wall. We want to be living it out as a staff, because people can feel the culture of a building right when they walk in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the thing, I think about a child from 5 to 18 spends most of their waking hours in a school building. So we always focus on testing and everything else, but it should be an enjoyable experience for them. They should want to come. They should leave every day not defeated and deflated, but, kind of revived and felt like that it was a good day and they accomplished something, because so much of a child's life is in that schoolhouse. And so I really do think, it's important to build and create that kind of culture where everybody wants to be there and enjoys being there. And that creates an environment where people are going to learn and hopefully achieve their best.
Yeah. And that's been something I've loved about elementary school, where when I was in secondary, you're shaking hands on stage at graduation, preparing to send them off. But elementary school, you're welcoming a family. It's that first experience with school, as you're talking about. And I know our experiences shape our attitudes, our experiences shape our beliefs. So just creating that environment for kids. And I remember the day I sent my wife and we put our oldest on the bus for kindergarten. And I remember walking to the bus stop, her oversized backpack. And as the bus approached, I wondered, would she cling to my leg? Would she cry? Would she say, I don't want to go? But she turned and she marched right up her little legs up those big steps. And I remember with tear-filled eyes being with my wife, just thinking, we just had her for 5 years, but now we are trusting her to our school, our daughter, our best. We are sending our best to that school. And I want that school to give our daughter their best. And that's something that really, even though I had been in education probably 9 to 10 years at that point, that is something that really, I look at that picture to start every school year. And I often make that part of my welcome back presentation to families. Like, hey, here's my story. This is my why in education, that North Star, just really picturing my kids and that feeling of sending her to school each day and just really trusting the school. So what an awesome opportunity. What a challenge we have in education, but it's certainly an awesome opportunity.
Absolutely. So we have one last question, Jeremy. Are you done?
I am.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I actually have two. One, would you share your book again, and then we'll post it too when we share this. But is it Leading?
Yeah. So in October, I released a book called Leading with People, and it's a 6-pillar framework for fruitful leadership. As I talked about earlier, the pillars are prioritizing people, empathizing, observing the needs and responding with compassion, praying, loving, and encouraging people. But before that, it talks about the first chapter is really about laying our leadership foundation. So taking care of ourselves, and then so we can focus on people. So I have the chapters, I have action items in each chapter. And then at the end of that book, there's actually a 49-day action plan, because there's 7 chapters and I have 7 items for each chapter. So it's really applicable. And I use some of those within Providence Elementary School this year, where I'm making sure I'm living it out and sharing that with the staff as well. So really excited about that book, Leading with People. And it's been neat to connect with some schools who are implementing it and being able to speak to those schools as well.
All right, and our last question is the most important one. Are you a coffee, latte, espresso guy? What are you?
Coffee. And so I drink a cup of black coffee every morning. It's part of my routine, and I love it. My wife and I set the timer in our coffee maker, and it's ready to go the next morning. My wife does an afternoon cup of coffee. I can't pull that off. I've tried a couple times, but the black coffee just doesn't taste the same in the afternoon. But first thing in the morning, the black cup of coffee hits just right.
Awesome.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on, and we enjoyed our conversation and hope to have you back on soon.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. It's been awesome talking with you, talking education, leadership, relationships, and people.
This has been Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. We hope that you leave today feeling informed and inspired. For more educational content, be sure to add this podcast to your list and follow Dr. Johnson on any and all social media platforms. For more information on Dr. Johnson, Jeremy Johnson, and special guests, check out drbradjohnson.com. That is DOCTOR, bradjohnson.com. Hope to have you back soon.